Okay, we're just gonna get started. So, hi everyone. Um, my name's Dr. Alysia. If anyone's here, I don't really know, but I'm gonna talk anyways because my paid subscribers will get access to this. Um, so we're just gonna start with a grounding breath. Make sure both your feet are flat on the ground or you're in a comfortable seated position. And you're just going to take a big, deep inhale, filling up your belly. Exhale, sigh it out. Take another big, deep inhale, filling up your belly, putting one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Exhale, sighing out. And one last big inhale in, filling up your belly. And exhale, sighing out. Okay, so today is going to be a really important conversation. I am super excited about it. This these are two topics that I absolutely love to discuss, and this will just live as a live replay on my site, A Black Woman's Apothecary. Um, and yeah, just some notes on the apothecary. I am really feeling into this phase of life where like I'm trying to just see the beauty in things and see the beauty in just the mundane areas of life. And so I really wanted to bring in an element of that beauty into the apothecary. I feel like I already kind of have that laced in here and there, but not as much as I want it to be. Like I'm someone who when I was younger, I really loved like creative writing. I really loved like poetic writing and things like that. And I have a really strong inclination towards like beautiful images and just like curating beautiful spaces. And so yeah, I wanted to dedicate a portion of the apothecary to that part of myself. And so I am starting next week something called Black Girl Muse. And this is an extension of the apothecary. I was thinking about doing a separate newsletter, but to be honest, I want it to just be a living, breathing part of the apothecary because I feel like the apothecary is becoming just its own entity, like, it's pretty much all of me in one place, and, for a while, I just didn't think that the beauty and, like, the aspects of myself that, you know, download, like, messages and journals and things like that really belonged here, the part of me that loves to just sit in stillness and think and be philosophical. Like I didn't know where that would go because so much of what I've discussed about or discussed up until this point has been, you know, women's health and science based and backed wellness stuff. And that is a part of me. I mean, I'm a scientist by nature. I research by nature, but there's also this really mystical, ethereal side of me that, like I said, is just drawn to beauty and beautiful things. And so, yeah, I felt like in the nature of just feeling more authentic in my expression on the apothecary, I wanted to create this living, breathing, open journal for you guys. And so I'm going to be writing in this ideally weekly, and it's going to be for my paid subscribers. And we're just gonna I'll basically be, like, writing the journal and then also doing voice notes to be a part of the journal. I've been told I have, like, a really calming voice, so I kind of just wanted to lean into that. And yeah, definitely give me your feedback. I just want to bring in some like beauty and joy into your weekly inbox and not have it be so like sterile and like prescriptive, Like I really want it to feel more flowy in the apothecary. So just some notes there. Um And let's just get into it. So, the reason I started with the deep breath today was first because I needed it. Like, if you know me, you know I'm constantly taking like deep sighing breaths throughout the day just because I know how important my nervous system is to my overall health. But because of that, and because of the journey today being so much about epigenetics and the nervous system, I wanted to um, just dedicate like a moment to what it could look like throughout your day, incorporating some nervous system things. So, for the apothecary, after you listen to the video, for the inner circle, you'll get access to a PDF that goes through some nervous system regulation things that you can do. Um, but we're going to start at the beginning. So, we're going to start in your ancestors, in your genetics, in your lineage. And we're going to start here because there is so much information that you can gain from understanding where you come from. And I did not really fully understand this until I was kind of in my own journey um, with health struggles and just, you know, as you go through life, you'll start to realize that your life will mirror back to you certain things that maybe you haven't healed, or maybe you're dealing with, or maybe your family has dealt with before you. And it's really just important to take note of those things. So, particularly, I want to talk about the concept of epigenetics. So, epigenetics is this idea that your environment, the foods you eat, the way you treat yourself, the way you show up in the world, it influences your DNA, which then influences how that DNA expresses itself. And so this becomes really important when we talk about certain histories that have possibly changed how DNA has been expressed within your lineage. And so it also becomes really important to note that your genes are not prescriptive. So epigenetics gives you back this identity that, whatever happened in your bloodline or whatever your genes say, that is like definitely what's going to happen. And epigenetics tells us that that's not the truth, right? We create the circumstances and the environments and the situations for genes to be expressed. And so this essentially says that trauma, stress, nourishment, love, safety all influence which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. Um, Epigenetic markers in a lot of research has been shown to be passed down from mother to child. So, usually within the womb of the mother, as you're, you know, like if the mother experiences stress or some sort of stressful experience, that can cause a certain expression in genes of the child. And so when I was doing my research in public health and maternal and child health, I focused on epigenetics, I focused on childhood trauma. And one of the things that I researched was this idea that if a mother experienced stress while pregnant, did that influence mental health? So like particularly I focused on depression, but you could also focus on anxiety and other chronic illnesses that come into the child's life. And so there's a very strong correlation between stressful experiences in the mother and the child's basically predisposition to chronic illness. So this concept in itself brings forward this idea that when we heal ourselves in this lifetime, there is ancestral healing backwards. And it's not this like woo woo, like metaphysical thing. It is that. And it's also scientifically supported that your genes change and the way that you express those genes change. And so all of this to say, there are lots of examples that show this. So, when I was researching for my research on epigenetics, one of the things I focused on was Holocaust survivors and the change in their epigenetic expression. And then there's also research that shows that like the Dutch famine caused like metabolic syndromes in grandchildren, which came from basically this expression in the environment changing the DNA, which was passed down, right? And so something in the grandchildren essentially caused that gene to express itself that had been changed from generations before it. So epigenetics works in two ways. We can separate it. One way is that a stressful experience can change how the DNA codes, and that can be passed down onto the child. The second way is that a child can experience a stressful environmental trigger that then causes the gene to encode and express a chronic illness. Okay, so there's two ways that it kind of supports these theories, and there are sometimes these experiences that particularly women can have where we possibly develop something from back in our lineage, right? So, like for me, I have the example of autoimmunity running in my family. My grandmother had lupus. I have cousins that have lupus. Uh, Autoimmunity is very prevalent in my family. And up until 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't have a relationship really with autoimmunity. I knew that this was something that I was susceptible to. I knew that I needed to pay attention to certain things that I was doing, but I just simply thought there's no way that like this can happen for me. You know, I do yoga, I meditate, I'm constantly doing interpersonal work on myself. Like, why would I get an autoimmune disease, right? And then that's when like the universe laughs and it's like, well, we're going to give you one and we're going to show you the lessons that come with having this condition. And the reality of it is I in my own external environment created the circumstances to bring out the expression of autoimmunity in my genes. And so for me that presented as autoimmune hair loss, it presented as long COVID. Um I'm grateful to say that it didn't go all the way to lupus, but I do know that had I continued along the same path, I do think it could have progressed to that. And I think that because of just everything I've learned from then on how our bodies actually heal and how, our external environment genuinely impacts how our genes are expressed. It's wild and it sounds crazy, but like your cells are absolutely interacting with the world around you. And more than that, they're interacting with your psychology. So that brings me into my next topic, which is psychoneuroimmunology, which when I first heard this word, I was like, I feel like this explains every single possible problem that I could possibly have in my life. This idea that how you think and the emotions that you feel are shaping your immune system. And so at first, maybe this sounds like unimportant to you, and maybe it sounds like it's not really relevant to you. But when I tell you that most women's health conditions come from some form of dysregulated immune system, then we start to understand, oh, like my psychology is literally causing this, right? And so when we talk about endometriosis, we talk about PCOS, we talk about, fibroids and all of these pro-inflammatory states. The inflammation that happens within your body is a product of your immune system. So your immune system releases certain things like cytokines, particularly like IL-6 is one of the ones that can kind of lead to inflammation in the body. And the reality of it is, your immune system is absolutely what's causing any sort of inflammation. So we can talk about like rheumatoid arthritis, we can talk about autoimmune hair loss, we can talk about inflammation of the nervous system, we can talk about um, inflammation of the joints, inflammation of, the tissue that leaves the the uterus and becomes endometrial tissue. You know, we can talk about all of those things, and the reality of it is the things that cause pain, the things that cause things to grow outside of regulation. So fibroids are growths that happen outside of regulation. If you're someone who deals with fibroids, I'm really excited because next month I have Glam Preezy, who's a fibroid specialist, coming on to talk about all things fibroids. We also have an article coming out together that'll go deep into fibroids and protocols and healing and just kinda introduce you to her because she's just absolutely so special, and this is her bread and butter, and so I like to just, like, connect people like that because, yes, I know a lot about fibroids, but it's not my bread and butter, I don't niche, like, my apothecary is literally meant to not niche, so one of the things that I love to do is to just bring you the people who have niched and who do that work and, expose you to them so that they can help you, you know? So I digress, but, you know, when we talk about the psychology and how it influences the immune system, this is absolutely the way that, she teaches, and it's really important because women particularly, we know that more women suffer from autoimmunity than men. The proportions are absolutely insane, and we also know that women have more of the emotional burden than men. Women are called the emotional metabolizers of our population, and that takes a toll. That absolutely takes a toll. And so I have some notes here that I just wanna make sure I hit. Essentially, psychoneuroimmunology is the field that studies how the nervous system relates to the immune system, which relates to the, brain connections and communications, okay? And so chronic stress, we know this, weakens the immunity and disrupts hormones.